folks, we've been learning about a mole, and we know mole's a lot of things. We learned about molar mass, but this is where we learn how to use it. Turns out that the molar mass is like a conversion factor. So can you write out the molar mass conversion factor?
So anytime that we have anything here in terms of grams, we can write that per 1 mole.
And where do you get the X?
This is from the periodic table. So every time that we are doing molar mass, in fact, that's going to be our go-to kind of mantra. Like if we say molar mass, it's going to be like, oh, like you're getting shocked. It's immediately going to be the periodic table we're working with. Now, we can also convert from moles to
Yeah, the Avogadro's number, right? So we can particles, what, there's 6.022 times 10 to the 23rd particles in 1 mole. Now remember, on our calculator, we don't write times 10 to the 23rd, we use the double E button on our calculators, right?
And also, when we say particles, what do we really mean there?
Well, there's a lot of things that could be a particle. Like an atom could be a particle, like an atom of gold, but so could a compound, like a molecule of carbon dioxide or something like that.
How about donut holes? Could they be particles?
Well, yeah, it could be donut holes, but we're not going to work with donut holes. We're gonna
Sure,
work
we can't work on that?
Yeah, no, well, we can get some if you want. But we're going to just use stuff from here, the periodic table. So particles of gold or whatever.
Now,
so let's do a conversion.
Yeah, before we do that,
Okay.
there's a pathway that we sometimes use. It's just kind of a cheat sheet for where we go.
Yeah. So in the middle goes moles.
Moles is king, right?
Yeah, and then on the outside you can go to say particles on the right. It doesn't actually, you can put it on the left, doesn't matter. And on the left you can go to grams. Now, and which conversion factor, Mr. Michowicz, do you use when you go from grams to moles?
So we're always going to use this conversion factor when we go between grams and moles. Now, one of the things that we were talking about prior to this, oh yeah, the double arrow is really important here. Thank you. And it looks integrated so smoothly with my blue. If you take a look at this right here, this is a one way to write
It's
it.
a conversion factor, but remember, any conversion factor, you can flip it.
So we have the moles on the bottom here, assuming that we have moles on the top, and we're going from the moles here to
But I
somewhere
could
else.
just as well have written 1 mole equals X grams.
And we could flip it over. So
Yeah.
both of these here, we can flip and flop as much as we absolutely
So let's
can.
do an example. Let's say that we have 5 moles of gold.
Do you want to do any decimals after this? Or just
How
say-
about 5.00?
Oh, I love that.
All right, 5.00 moles of gold. Now we have to decide which of our 2 conversion factors do we need to use.
Well, what
Number
did we say
1
we wanted to
or
go to?
number 2? We want to go to grams.
Want to go to
Oh,
grams.
I forgot to say.
You probably forgot to.
I forgot to say grams. We're going to go to grams.
Yeah.
So if we want to go to grams, so which one are we going to use? We're going to go from moles to grams. Now we have to ask the question, do I leave the fraction or do I flip it? Now,
Remember our
Mr.
train
Beaver-
tracks?
Yeah, train tracks, and I would say that's number over 1, right?
Sure.
And I need to get rid of mole, so mole goes, well, we're going to leave it. We're going to leave it the way it is. So 1 mole is equal to, and I've got the periodic table here and the Mr. Bergman glasses because you can't read, 197.0. And since both those numbers are on top, I'm going to take 5 times 197.0, and I get 985. Now, what units are left? Can you show, Mr. Demetrius, what units got
Well,
canceled?
I actually would, I take umbrage with what you did, the order you did in here, because I'm a big fan of just destroying units right off the bat. So as soon as you see a mole here and a mole here,
You
don't let it
cancel
stand. Just cancel it out and use a different color for learning
Yeah,
purposes. And you
You're
can
left
underline
with
this, or you
grams.
can even circle it for, again, circles make learning better, right?
And then that's grams of AU. Now, notice that he didn't write just grams. He wrote grams of AU, moles of AU. It's important to actually label its grams or moles of a particular chemical. So make sure you're labeling that.
Now, right now, you might be like, "Pshaw, old man, why do we have to do that?" Well, the next
Trust
unit's
us.
yeah, we're going to be actually converting and doing reactions where there's more than one element. So if you get in the habit of it now, it's going to be a lot easier for you down the road.
Okay.
Shall we try another one?
Yep. So what would be another example that we could do?
Let's just try a make-believe one, and we're going to go with, you know what, I've fallen in love with 5.00. We're going to go 5.00 times 10 to the 26, and I'm going to call this particles. Now,
Particles of what?
well, and here's the thing, it could be anything, but I fall in love with the idea of gold, so I'm going to use gold again.
I got the gold on my fingers.
Yeah, so here we
Okay.
go.
So I want to convert that to what, though?
We want to convert that to moles. Now, I'm going to use the fancy abbreviation where we don't put an E on the end.
So why don't we write out what we know as a fraction over 1? But
So-
we don't write the word, well, we do write particles, I guess.
So we're going to start off in our train tracks, and remember, we always put what we have in the upper left-hand corner of our table. And we'll put the 1 down below because my class, I tend to get lazy and not put that in here,
Yeah.
but Mr. Bergman likes doing that.
So now what we need to do is we need to look at our two fractions. Fraction number 1, the periodic table 1, or the second one, the Avogadro number 1, and clearly it's the Avogadro number 1.
Yeah, because here, if you want to go from particles to moles, we have to use this one right here. Now the question is, do we flip this or do we leave it the way
Well,
it is?
I noticed that particles are on top, and up here they're on top. That doesn't work because they have to cancel. So you're going to flip it.
Flip it.
All
So
right.
we're going to go
6.022 times 10 to the 23rd particles of gold, AU, is equal to 1 mole of AU. Now, on my calculator, now listen how I type this in. I'm going to take 5, because it's 5.00, I'm not going to take 5.00. E, I hit the double E button. 26 divided by 6.022 double E 23. And I get 830.28894.
830.2.
8894, etc. Now, what's the units on that?
Well, we didn't jump to my immediate favorite thing to do, which is
Oh,
to
we
cancel
forgot
the
to
unit.
cancel out the units, yes.
So we canceled the units.
And all we have left are moles AU, so why don't you write moles AU there. But now, folks, we do have a significant figure error problem.
Yeah.
So how many significant figures are our number that we started with is usually the number that we always round to, and this is more than that, so we're gonna round to 3 digits, so that's 830 point, remember that point does matter, 830
Decimal.
decimal mole AU.
Now, I want to point out something here because we took the generic particles of AU in here. The reality is that we're never going to talk about, hey, I have a certain number of particles of AU. We're going to talk about atoms of AU. So depending on what we have, if we have a single atom or an element, we're going to call it an atom. If we happen to have something like CO2, we're not going to say we have
An
a certain
atom of
number
carbon
an atom of carbon dioxide.
A molecule.
We call a molecule. So right now we just put the generic in here, but realize we're going to substitute words in here. Don't be frightened. Be like, wait, I understood particles, but what does it mean if there's atoms? It's just that the name of that particle happens to be an atom.
So to summarize, guys, what you're going to do on these is the key is you're going to start with your given as a fraction over 1. Then you're going to ask yourself, which of these two fractions do I use? And then decide then, do you leave it or do you flip it? And then you do the math.
Canceling is a big thing too, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, you set it up and then you cancel the units and then bingo, you do the math. You divide things on the bottom, you multiply things on the top, and you get numbers like this.
And probably the biggest thing we can leave you with is you got to practice these, right?
Yeah.
Watching us do it one time and be like, yeah, it makes sense. It's different than when you do some of the problems we're going to give
Yeah,
you.
but we're going to give you lots of problems in class. You're going to figure it out. That's it.
See you next time.